There are times when our chess heroes seem to be superhuman, while the rest of us sort of toil in obscurity, doing our best and occasionally experiencing heartbreak when we blow a winning position and it just kind of ruins our day. We rarely see that sort of thing happen with a Fischer or a Kasparov or Carlsen. This unique game, played in Skopje in 1967, was in Bobby Fischer's My 60 Memorable Games. He chose to include it. His opponent is F.M. Geller. Fischer has the white pieces, Geller has black. Let us jump right in. Fischer begins with e4, Geller with c5, knight f3, d6, and we quickly have an open Sicilian on the board, no sidelines here. Knight to f6, knight c3, and knight to c6. This is known as the classical Sicilian, where black puts a premium on getting their pieces out as quickly as possible, as opposed to, say, a6 or g6, like we see in a knight or for a dragon. Fischer plays bishop to c4, of course, his favorite move, aiming directly at the f7 pawn. Black plays e6 to limit the scope of that bishop, and bishop to e3. And we can see Fischer is not wasting time. He wants to get his pieces out as quickly as he possibly can, and now all four of his minor pieces have been developed. Bishop to e7, the bishop tucks back to b3, castle short, and queen to e2. So Fischer is giving himself the option of castling short or castling long, depending on what black does, and black plays queen to a5. That pins the knight at c3 and indirectly puts pressure on the e4 pawn. Fischer goes ahead and castles long, which makes sense, and now at some point he's going to want to launch an attack on black's king, but black will want to do the same on the queen's side, so this should be a sharp attacking game. Knight takes d4, getting rid of that well-placed knight of white's. Bishop takes d4, and bishop to d7, a common theme. The bishop will go to c6, where it will put pressure on e4, and it can also support a b7, b5 pawn advance to dislodge this knight at c3. King to b1, bishop to c6, hitting e4. And now Fischer goes ahead and plays f4. The pawn is defended at the moment by the queen and the knight, but he wants to launch on the king side. So he plays f4, gaining space, and this other pawn, this g-pawn, could be launching very soon. Rook a to d8. Geller sets up what is usually black's main source of counterplay in a Sicilian, this d5 pawn break. The rook supports this d6, d5 move. Fischer plays rook h to f1. Not only does that support a potential f4, f5 push, but the rook could go to the third rank at some point and create problems with a rook lift there. Geller jumps right in, though, with b5. He wants to dislodge this knight at c3 so the pawn at e4 isn't defended anymore. It would only be defended by the queen. So you would think Fischer would do something about that. The problem with a move like, say, a3 is that black can go ahead and play b4, and all of a sudden white's king is beginning to lose its pawn cover. So Fischer just goes ahead and plays f5, trying to soften up this long diagonal, weaken the e6 pawn. Well, Geller says, okay, well, I'm going to dislodge your knight at c3 then, with b4. So what Fischer does is he ignores it. He goes ahead and takes on e6, Geller takes the knight, and then pawn takes f7 check. The king moves over. He takes with the rook, obviously. Bishop could just take the rook. And here in this position, it looks like the most natural move for white is to play bishop takes c3. But then after queen to g5, it's very hard to get at black's king. And remember, Fischer has sacrificed a whole knight here. The knight that was at c3. And after something like rook f5, queen to g6, black is a little bit better here. It's very hard to get at his king, and he has that piece. So Fischer plays this move, rook to f5. That hits the queen and keeps it from accessing the king side. Queen to b4, and now queen to f1. And again, after bishop takes pawn, queen to e4, offering the exchange of queens, and black is doing well. But queen to f1 looks quite nasty. He's threatening all kinds of sacrifices on f6 here. For example, if it were white's move, he could just play rook takes knight. After bishop takes rook, queen takes bishop. And if the pawn were to take the queen, bishop takes f6 would be mate. So the queen at f1 is very aggressively posted and has a lot of threats. But Geller calmly takes the pawn at e4. With the knight no longer on f6, the sacrifice is not available. And the knight could come to d2 with check, forking the king and the queen, where Fischer would have to give up his rook. Now, in this position, there is a computer move that white can play, and this is very much a computer move. It is the best move in the position, and it's important for me to show it to you because of the game continuation, and that's the move queen to f4. The idea is using this h6 square as a pivot point for white's pieces, which looks ridiculous, but since the g7 pawn is pinned by the bishop, it's actually possible here. So if black were to, say, take on b2 with the pawn, then rook to h5, and the threat is actually to just play queen to h6 with unstoppable mate on h7. But after knight to f6, rook to h6. Again, like I'm saying, this is a computer variation, but it is white's best option. And after something like knight to d7, again trying to remove the knight so there would be no sacrifice, then just queen to f5, threatening h7, and that would be it after knight takes, bishop takes, queen to h7, mate. But that would, if that happened today, you could be very, very suspicious. Fischer makes a much more natural move. He plays the move a3 and queen to b7, and now, with the queen pushed away, queen to f4, which means he saw some of the outlines of those tactics already, which is really incomprehensible to me, but he did, playing queen to f4. But it turns out queen to f4 is a mistake. And Fischer said he did not see Geller's next move coming. I mean, it hit him like a bolt. He just says, in my 60 memorable games, I didn't see it. And remember, black is up a piece here. And here is Geller's move that shocked Fischer. Bishop to a4. And just like that, black is winning. The problem is, of course, that there's a pin down this b file. If bishop takes bishop, queen to b2 is checkmate. In this position, if Fischer were to play queen to h6, threatening queen takes g7 mate, of course the pawn can't take the queen because of the pin, then bishop takes f6, and after, say, rook takes f6, bishop takes b3, rook to f2, then this is the problem. Bishop to a2 check. After king takes bishop, queen to b2 mate. That would not work there. And in this case, if bishop takes f6, keeping the threat of mate, then just knight takes f6. And that's trouble. So Fischer plays the move queen to g4, threatening mate in 1, obviously. But then black just plays bishop to f6, blocking it. Fischer goes ahead and plays rook takes f6. And then Geller plays bishop takes b3. And Fischer resigned here. And what he said was that he was calculating the move rook to f4 and then realized that after bishop to a2, the game was over. So it would go like this: rook to f4, bishop to a2 check. And then after king takes, it would be mate. He has to take the bishop, by the way. Moving over is still mate. Either way. So, at least for one game, the great Fischer was human, and kudos to him for including it in his masterpiece, My 60 Memorable Games. It really does happen to all of us. I hope you've enjoyed this wonderful and entertaining game. See you again soon at Chess Dog. Goodbye.